The hook, opening suspense. The cold silence of space surrounded the ship. Stars shone like distant fires outside the long windows, and the only sound inside was the soft hum of the engines. The human stood near the glass, his hands resting against the metal frame. His eyes were fixed on the endless darkness, but his heart was heavy with thoughts that burned inside him. He had fought many battles. He had seen planets burn, heard the cries of the dying, and felt the sharp weight of loneliness. But none of that compared to what he felt now. Tonight was different. Tonight, he had to speak the words he had hidden for so long. Words that could change his life forever. Behind him, the door slid open with a hiss. The sound made him turn his head slowly, as if he already knew who it was. She entered the room like a shadow of light. The alien woman. Her skin had a soft glow, as if it carried starlight beneath its surface. Her eyes were sharp, full of wisdom and sorrow, and her long hair fell across her shoulders like threads of silver. She moved with quiet grace, but her steps were heavy, as though she carried the weight of an entire world on her back. For a moment, they said nothing. Only silence filled the room, and silence can sometimes speak louder than words. The human's heart pounded. He wanted to speak, but the words caught in his throat. He had faced warlords, monsters, and machines built to kill. But speaking to her like this frightened him more than anything else. Because this was not about survival. This was about love. The alien woman finally broke the silence. "You should be resting," she said, her voice soft, almost like a song. "You need your strength for tomorrow." The human turned away from the window and looked at her. His eyes, tired from years of fighting, softened when they met hers. "I don't need rest," he replied quietly. "What I need is courage." Her gaze sharpened, but there was a flicker of concern in her eyes. "Courage for what?" she asked. He took a step closer. The glow of the lamp beside the bed cast shadows across his face, making him look both strong and fragile. "For what I must say to you." Her heart raced. She tried to remain calm, but she knew the human well. Whenever he spoke in that tone, it meant something deep was hidden inside him. Something serious. The silence grew heavier. The hum of the ship filled the room like a whisper of fate. The alien woman lowered herself onto the edge of the bed. She sat straight, her hands resting in her lap, her expression controlled, but inside, her thoughts were storming. She had fought beside this man. She had seen him risk his life for her more than once. She had felt her heart tremble in ways she had never known before. But she was afraid. Afraid of what would happen if she allowed herself to accept what she already felt. The human moved closer. His footsteps echoed faintly against the metal floor. Now, only a few feet separated them. He could see the faint marks on her skin, glowing softly like patterns of another world. She was not like him. She came from a race that saw humans as weak, fragile, and unworthy. And yet here she was, sitting in front of him, the only one who had ever truly touched his soul. He wanted to reach out, to take her hand, but he stopped himself. Not yet. Not until he spoke. "You know," he began slowly, his voice low and steady, "I've fought my whole life. Every day was survival. Every night was filled with fear of tomorrow. I thought I would never find peace. I thought I would never find someone." Her eyes lifted to meet his. For a second, the mask she wore cracked, and he saw the pain hidden beneath. "You did not have to find me," she whispered. "It was fate that forced us together." "Maybe," he said, a small smile touching his lips. "But fate doesn't make me feel this way. Fate doesn't make me stand here, afraid to speak the words in my heart." Her breath caught. A chill ran through her body, though the room was warm. She had prepared herself for many things. Another battle, another mission, another death. But not this. Never this. He stepped even closer, his shadow falling over her. His voice dropped to a whisper, almost trembling now. "What I want to say could change everything." The alien woman clenched her hands together in her lap. Her chest rose and fell with each deep breath, as though she were bracing for impact. She had seen him face death without fear. She had seen him bleed and rise again. Yet here he stood, his voice shaking, his heart exposed. The silence stretched, thick with tension. Outside, the stars watched in stillness, as if the universe itself waited for what would be spoken next. And then, the human leaned closer. His lips were just inches from her ear. His breath was warm against her skin. And though he had faced armies and monsters, it was this moment that made his heart race the most. He whispered, "I want to tell you something I've carried inside me for so long." The alien woman's eyes widened. A tear she didn't notice welled up in the corner of her eye. She could feel the gravity of his words before they were even spoken. And then, silence. The story held its breath, and the audience waited with them. The past they shared. The room was still, heavy with the weight of the words left unspoken. The human stood close, his heart pounding, while the alien woman tried to hide the storm inside her chest. But before he could speak more, her eyes drifted away, lost in memories that refused to stay buried. For her, the story did not begin tonight. It began long ago, on a battlefield where death ruled the skies. She remembered the day she first saw him. Smoke had covered the land, and fire had torn through the air like angry dragons. Her people and his were enemies, locked in a war that had lasted for generations. She had been a commander, trained to fight without fear, to never hesitate, to never trust a human. But that day, everything changed. Her ship had fallen, crushed by fire. She had been pinned beneath the wreckage, her body broken, her strength slipping away. Around her, her soldiers had already fled or died. She thought her final moment had come. Then she saw him, a human soldier, wearing torn armor, his face covered in dirt and blood. He should have killed her. She was his enemy. She had killed humans before. But instead of striking her down, he had dropped his weapon. He pushed through fire and debris, his arms burned and bleeding, just to pull her free. At first, she had stared at him in disbelief. Why would a human risk his life for her? Why would he save the enemy? She had no answer. And yet, that moment had stayed with her. Even when she returned to her people, even when she wore her armor again, she could not forget the human who saved her instead of killing her. The human also remembered. He remembered the way her eyes had looked that day, sharp but afraid, proud but broken. He remembered carrying her on his back while fire fell from the sky. He had thought she might kill him when she regained her strength, but she hadn't. She had only stared at him in silence, as if she was trying to solve a puzzle she couldn't understand. That was the beginning. After that, fate threw them together again and again. In raids, in secret missions, in desperate fights against greater threats that neither side could face alone. Again and again, they found themselves side by side. And every time, something changed. Once, she had saved him from an ambush, cutting down 3 soldiers from her own side to keep him alive. She told herself it was strategy, that she needed him for the mission. But deep down, she knew it was more. Once, he had taken a blade for her, blood pouring from his chest. He had smiled even as he fell, saying, "At least you'll live." That smile haunted her nights. They fought together, bled together, survived together. And with each battle, a bond grew stronger than duty, stronger than war. It was a bond neither of them wanted to admit, because admitting it was dangerous. Her people would call her a traitor. His people would call him a fool. Both sides would tear them apart if they discovered what was happening between them. And yet, when their eyes met, when their hands brushed in the dark, when their hearts beat together in the silence after battle, they both knew. They knew this was more than survival. It was connection. The alien woman blinked, returning from her memories. The human was still there, standing close, his eyes filled with quiet fire. She looked away quickly, hiding the tears that threatened to rise. "Do you remember the ruins of Koresh?" she asked softly, her voice trembling just a little. He nodded. Of course he remembered. The ruins of Koresh, where they had fought side by side against creatures born of shadow, things that devoured both human and alien alike. He had thought they would die that night. But in the end, it had been her hand pulling him from the darkness, her voice crying his name when he almost slipped away. "You saved me there," she whispered. "I never thanked you." He smiled faintly, but there was pain in his eyes. "You don't have to thank me. I would do it again. Every time. Her chest tightened. She wanted to tell him what that meant to her, how his loyalty had broken every wall she had built. But fear held her tongue. Fear of her people. Fear of losing everything she had sworn to protect. And yet, deep inside, another voice whispered, "Haven't you already lost? Haven't you already given him your heart?" The human stepped closer again. His voice was steady now, but soft, like he was afraid the moment might break. "We've been through battles no one else will ever understand. We've seen each other at our weakest, at our strongest. And still, we're here, together." Her eyes flickered back to his. His words were simple, but they struck her like a blade of truth. Together. That was what scared her the most. The silence stretched again, thick with tension and memory. Outside, stars burned, each one a witness to the impossible bond between a human and an alien. The alien woman lowered her gaze, her hands trembling. She could not admit it yet, but in her heart, she already knew. This human had become something she could never let go. The conflict. The ship floated silently through space, but inside the room, storms were brewing. The human stood tall, his heart steady now, while the alien woman's thoughts tangled like chains. She had remembered their past, the battles, the moments that tied them together. But the present was far heavier than memory, because love between them was more dangerous than any battlefield. The alien woman looked away, her silver hair falling across her face as she tried to control her emotions. Her people had strict laws. They had rules older than empires. A union with a human was unthinkable. It was forbidden. She had seen what happened to those who broke the code. Outcasts, prisoners, sometimes worse. Her chest tightened. She had sworn an oath to her people, to her home. If she allowed her heart to follow him, she would betray everything she once stood for. And yet, when she looked at him, when she saw the fire in his eyes, the scars he carried, the truth in his voice, her oath felt weaker than a whisper. The human noticed her silence. He had fought too long not to understand the weight pressing down on her. He stepped closer, his voice calm but firm. "You're afraid." Her head snapped toward him, her eyes glowing with pride. "I'm not afraid," she said, her voice sharp. "Yes, you are," he replied softly. "You're stronger than anyone I know, but you're afraid of this, of us." She opened her mouth to argue, but the words never came. His gaze pierced her defenses, and she hated that he was right. "You think your people won't accept it," he continued. "You think mine won't, either. And maybe they won't. Maybe both sides will call us traitors. But tell me," his voice dropped lower, steady and intense, "since when have we lived our lives for them?" Her breath caught. The question struck her deeper than any weapon. The truth was, she had never lived for herself. Since the day she was born, she had carried the burden of her people, the duty of a warrior. Her choices had never been hers alone. But now for the first time, her heart wanted something different. And that was what scared her most of all. She rose from the bed, standing tall, her glowing marks shining faintly in the dim light. "You don't understand," she said, her voice trembling though she tried to sound strong. "If I choose you, I will lose everything." The human didn't flinch. "Then I will give you everything. My life, my strength, my future, whatever it takes." Her hand shook. The raw certainty in his words shook her even more. He was not afraid to stand against the galaxy. But could she? The air between them thickened with tension. Every word seemed to echo against the walls, pressing them closer together. Then came the sound, sharp, mechanical. A distant alarm pulsed through the corridors of the ship. The alien woman stiffened. The sound was a warning. Someone was near. Her eyes darted to the door. If anyone saw them like this, standing too close, speaking in hushed voices, it would raise questions. Dangerous questions. "Go," she whispered quickly, her eyes wide. "If they see us." But the human shook his head. "I don't care who sees." "You should care," she hissed, her tone sharp with fear. "If they find out, you will be executed. And I will be cast out." He stepped closer, his voice steady, unshaken by the alarm. "Then let them. I would rather die for the truth than live a lie." Her heart pounded. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever dared to stand so openly against the walls her people built. The alarm grew louder, echoing down the hallways. Footsteps could be heard, guards patrolling. The alien woman turned, her eyes filling with conflict. For a moment, she wanted to run, to escape, to pretend none of this was happening. But when she looked back at him, standing there without fear, she knew running was no longer possible. Because the truth was out now, even if unspoken. They both wanted the same thing. The human's words lingered in her ears. Since when have we lived for them? The door's shadow stretched across the floor as the footsteps grew closer. The alien woman took a sharp breath, her body tense, her soul torn. She had to decide, hide the truth and protect them both, or risk everything for a love the galaxy would never forgive. Her hands curled into fists. Her tears burned behind her eyes. And as the footsteps stopped outside the door, she realized the greatest battle was not against her enemies. It was against her own heart. The whispered words. The footsteps outside faded. The alarm quieted. Silence returned to the room, but the air remained heavy, charged with all the words left unsaid. The alien woman stood still, her chest rising and falling as she fought to steady her breath. For a moment, she thought the guards might enter, that the truth would be exposed before either of them was ready. But the danger passed, and now only the two of them remained, two hearts beating faster than the hum of the ship. The human moved closer. He didn't speak at first, only looked at her, his eyes holding a storm of emotions. Strength, fear, hope, love. Her eyes met his, and for a heartbeat, she saw not a human enemy, not a fragile mortal, but something far greater. She saw a soul willing to fight the galaxy itself just to stay beside her. Her lips parted. She wanted to tell him to stop, to turn away, to protect himself. But when she looked at him, the words froze in her throat. Because deep inside, she didn't want him to stop. The human lowered his head slightly, stepping closer, his voice soft, almost trembling. There are things I've carried for too long. Things I've buried because I thought they were impossible. The alien woman's eyes narrowed, though her heart raced faster. What things? He took a breath, steadying himself. His hand brushed the edge of the bed as he leaned in, close enough for her to feel the warmth of his presence. I thought I could stay silent, he whispered. I thought I could fight beside you, protect you, and never say the truth. But every day it grows heavier, and I can't hold it anymore. Her throat tightened. She wanted to tell him not to speak, that his words could destroy them both. But still she listened. Still she waited. The human's voice dropped lower, filled with all the weight of his soul. Let's build a family together. The words struck her like a blade of light cutting through the dark. Her breath caught, her body frozen. Family. No human had ever spoken those words to her kind. No alien from her people had ever dreamed of such a thing with a human. Families were sacred, tied to bloodlines, to destiny. And here he was, whispering what no one dared even imagine. Her chest ached. Tears filled her eyes before she could stop them. She turned her face slightly away, as if hiding her weakness, but a single tear rolled down her cheek, glowing faintly under the lamplight. The human saw it, and his heart clenched. He reached out slowly, carefully, his hand trembling. For a moment he hovered, afraid she might push him away. But then, gently, he touched her cheek, wiping the tear away with his thumb. Don't cry, he whispered softly. I don't want to hurt you. I want a future. With you. Her lips trembled. She wanted to speak, but her voice broke. For so long, she had told herself it was impossible. That love between them was doomed. That hope was dangerous. But now, hearing his words, seeing the truth in his eyes, she felt the walls inside her crack and fall apart. You don't understand, she whispered back, her voice trembling. My people will never allow this. They will call me traitor. They will take everything from me. Then let them, he said firmly, his eyes burning with conviction. Let them take everything. Because as long as I have you, I have more than they could ever give. Her tears came faster now, each one a battle she could no longer win. She lifted her gaze to his, her eyes shimmering. You would give up your world for me, she asked, her voice barely a breath. He smiled sadly, but there was no hesitation in his voice. I already have. The silence stretched again, but it was no longer empty. It was filled with something stronger than fear, something that bound them beyond duty, beyond blood, beyond war. The alien woman's heart broke and healed in the same moment. She reached up slowly, her hand resting against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart. It was strong, steady, human, and it was hers. Her tears fell freely now, not from sorrow, but from the overwhelming truth. No one had ever spoken to her like this. No one had ever dared to dream of something so impossible, so beautiful. The human leaned closer, his forehead touching hers. "We've fought enough battles," he whispered. "It's time we fight for something worth living for." Her lips trembled as she closed her eyes, whispering back, "And if I say yes, there will be no turning back." "Then we won't turn back," he said. "Not ever." Her heart shattered, rebuilt, and soared all at once. For the first time in her life, she felt free, not as a soldier, not as a commander, but as a woman who was loved. The alien woman wept, her tears falling onto his hands, her voice breaking but filled with truth. "Then I will build it with you." Outside, the stars burned brighter, as if the universe itself bore witness to a love that defied everything. The alien's tears. The room felt colder now, though the lights glowed softly around them. Silence lingered like a heavy blanket, but it was a quiet filled with emotions too deep to name. The alien woman's hands trembled as she brushed her silver hair behind her ears, trying to steady herself. Her glowing eyes were wet, shimmering with tears that refused to stop. She couldn't speak. Every word she tried to form caught in her throat. Love and fear, hope and guilt, tangled inside her like a storm. She had wanted to be strong. She had wanted to fight, to hide her heart, to remain untouchable. But now, with him standing so close, whispering impossible promises, her walls were gone. The human watched her carefully. He didn't move too quickly. He didn't try to force her to speak. He only reached out, letting her see that he was there, steady, unshaken. "Sure, it's okay," he said softly. "Let out. You don't have to be strong all the time." Her tears fell freely, glowing faintly against her skin. They weren't just tears of happiness, though there was some of that. They were tears of fear, of guilt, of a life that had never allowed her to choose. They were tears of a warrior who had loved secretly, silently, and finally allowed herself to feel openly. She started, but the words broke before she could finish. He gently took her hands in his. "You don't have to explain anything. I know." She looked into his eyes, and in that gaze, she saw acceptance, patience, love, things she had thought impossible to find in the universe. Her chest ached. She wanted to tell him everything, the fears, the rules of her people, the weight of her oath. But the human only nodded, as if he already understood the battles she fought silently every day. Her shoulders shook. "I've never allowed myself to feel like this," she whispered, voice trembling. "I've always been a soldier, a guardian. My people, they expect me to be strong, untouchable, fearless. And now I feel like I'm breaking." "You're not breaking," he said firmly, brushing a tear from her cheek. "You're becoming real. And that's stronger than anything I've ever known." She shook her head, laughing softly through her tears. "Real? I feel weak, helpless, like I'm betraying everyone I've ever been." He held her closer, careful not to overwhelm her, but close enough for her to feel the warmth of his body. "You're not betraying anyone. You're choosing life, choosing love. That's not weakness. That's courage. The kind of courage that changes worlds." She couldn't look away. His words burned into her, gentle but powerful. For the first time, she saw the truth clearly. Strength wasn't in hiding her heart. Strength was in allowing herself to be vulnerable, to feel, to trust. And still, the tears didn't stop. They fell silently, streaking her glowing skin, leaving tiny marks of light behind. She pressed her forehead against his chest, letting herself be carried, cradled in his unwavering presence. "I'm afraid," she whispered finally, her voice barely audible. afraid of losing everything, afraid that one day, you'll realize this was a mistake. He tightened his hold around her. And if that day comes, we'll face it together. But for now, we have now. And in this moment, I choose you. I choose us. Her tears turned into quiet sobs. She had never imagined that words could feel like lifelines, that one person could make her entire world shift. And yet, here she was, letting herself fall into a love that defied rules, stars, and galaxies. The human held her, steady, patient, letting her cry until the storm inside her quieted. Hours could have passed, but time didn't matter. There was only this shared moment of truth, of surrender, of hope. Finally, she lifted her head, wiping her glowing tears. Her eyes met his, and in that gaze there was something new, acceptance, determination, a flicker of something dangerous and beautiful. You really mean it? She asked, her voice trembling but strong. Even knowing the cost, even knowing everything, he replied. I would risk every star, every battle, every law in a galaxy, just for this, just for you. Her lips trembled, and for the first time, she smiled through the tears. It was a small smile, fragile but real. A smile that promised hope, love, and defiance. And in that smile, the human saw a world worth fighting for. The alien woman rested her head against his chest again, letting herself feel. The tears had cleansed her fears. They had opened a path she had never dared to walk. And now, side by side, they were ready to face whatever came next, together. Because love, even against impossible odds, was a force no galaxy could control. The dangerous choice. The stars outside the ship's window glittered like scattered diamonds, but inside, the air was thick with unease. The alien woman's glowing eyes darted around the room, alert and wary. Every shadow seemed to hide a threat, every sound a warning. She had allowed herself to feel, to love, but now the galaxy reminded her that love came at a cost. The human watched her, knowing exactly what she felt. He had seen the signs, alerts from the ship, encrypted signals from her people, and distant patrols moving in silence across the cosmos. They were being hunted. We have to leave, he said quietly, brushing his hand against hers. Now, she shook her head, her silver hair catching the faint light. We can't run forever. If my people find us, it will not just be a warning. They will take everything from me, maybe even you. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. Then we fight. Not against each other, not against love, but against them. Together. Her eyes widened. You would risk your life for me? He nodded, his jaw firm. I've already risked everything. And I'll risk everything more if it means staying with you. Nothing else matters. For a moment, she stared at him, torn between fear and desire, duty and heart. Her body shook, not with weakness, but with the weight of choice, the dangerous choice of love over law, heart over duty. I've been trained my whole life, she whispered, to protect, to obey, to survive. But my heart is telling me something different, something dangerous. Then follow your heart, he said, his voice steady, pulling her closer. I'll be there every step, no matter the danger. The alien woman hesitated. She could almost hear the echoes of her past, the whispers of commanders, the warnings of elders, the rules she had lived by for centuries. They all screamed at her to stop, to return to the path of safety. But her heart screamed louder. Finally, she nodded, determination replacing fear. Then we leave. Together. But we need a plan. If they catch us unprepared, her voice faltered. It could mean the end. He smiled faintly, brushing a tear from her glowing cheek. We'll be ready. I've fought countless battles. We'll find a way. The alien woman took a deep breath, scanning the room, the ship's controls, the maps of nearby systems. Every decision felt heavier than the last. Every move carried the weight of their lives. And yet, she felt alive in a way she never had before, because she was choosing love, not just survival. Then it's decided, she said firmly, her glowing eyes meeting his. We leave at first light. We take the Northern Star route. It's risky, but the only chance to avoid patrols for long enough. He nodded. Risky or not, it's ours. I don't care what happens as long as it's with you. For a brief moment, the world outside seemed to hold its breath. Even the hum of the ship seemed quieter, as if acknowledging the weight of their decision. They were no longer just a human and an alien soldier. They were partners in defiance, in hope, in love. Then the alarms rang. Sharp, urgent, unrelenting. She froze. Her heart sank. They found us, she whispered, fear creeping back. They know where we are. The human grabbed her hand, holding it tightly. Then we move. Now, with a shared glance, they rushed to the controls. Fingers flew over buttons and levers, lights blinking faster than ever. The ship hummed with energy, ready to tear through the galaxy at impossible speed. But the alien woman hesitated for a heartbeat, her eyes meeting his again. Promise me, no matter what happens, we stay together. I promise, he said, voice steady, eyes locking on hers. We survive this together. The engines roared to life. Lights flickered. The ship shook as it launched into the void. Behind them, the distant patrols of her people began their pursuit, tracing every movement, every signal. The alien woman pressed close to him, letting herself feel the warmth of his presence, the strength of his heart. The danger was real. The choice was deadly. But for the first time in her life, she wasn't alone. Love had made them targets, but it had also made them unstoppable. And in the vast, endless galaxy, their hearts burned brighter than any star. The final leap. The ship raced through the stars, its engines burning like a comet across the dark void. Alarms blared intermittently, warning of proximity scanners and patrol drones closing in fast. The alien woman gripped the controls with trembling hands, her silver hair glowing faintly in the cabin lights. Fear and determination warred inside her chest, but the human beside her gave her strength she didn't know she had. They're too close, she whispered, her voice tight with worry. We might not make it. He reached out, taking her hand firmly. We will. We have to. Trust me. Trust us. For the first time in her life, she felt not just the weight of responsibility, but the power of choice. They had chosen each other over duty, over rules, over fear. And now, in the face of impossible odds, they would fight for that choice. The patrols were fast, relentless, cutting through the darkness with deadly precision. Their lights glimmered like sharp blades, closing in with each second. The alien woman's mind raced, calculating trajectories, escape routes, and the tiniest openings in enemy sensors. Every move had to be perfect. Every hesitation could cost them their lives. Hold on, the human said, tightening his grip on her shoulder. Whatever happens, we face it together. No regrets. Her glowing eyes met his, and in that instant, fear melted into resolve. They were not just escaping. They were fighting for love, for life, for the future they had chosen together. The ship dove into a narrow asteroid field, the jagged rocks barely missing them as alarm screamed. Her heart pounded like a drum, each beat echoing through the cabin. The patrols followed, their scanners blinking red, their weapons primed. Brace yourself, she shouted, veering sharply between two massive asteroids. The ship twisted, sparks flying as it scraped past the rocky edges. The human held on, feeling the rush of adrenaline, the thrill of danger, but also the unshakable certainty that they belonged together. You've got this, he yelled over the roar. I believe in you. A patrol drone zipped past, firing a laser that burned through the darkness just inches from them. The alien woman's stomach churned, but she didn't falter. She leaned into the controls, dodging, weaving, spinning through the chaos with a skill honed over centuries. Finally, she saw it, a narrow gap in the asteroid field leading to open space. If they could make it, they could jump to hyperspace and leave the patrols behind forever. We can do it, she said, determination blazing in her glowing eyes. But I need your help. I'm with you, he said, gripping her hand. Whatever you need, whatever you choose, we do it together. With precise movements, she guided the ship toward the gap, engines screaming, lights flickering, lasers whizzing past. The patrols were almost upon them, closing faster than they could calculate. "Now," she shouted. The human pulled a lever, initiating the hyperspace jump. The stars stretched into brilliant lines as the ship hurtled forward. A blinding light filled the cabin, and for a moment, it felt like the universe itself had paused, holding its breath. When the light faded, they were gone. The patrols were left behind, unable to follow. Silence enveloped them, broken only by the hum of the engines and their own racing hearts. The alien woman exhaled, a laugh escaping her lips, a laugh of relief, of triumph, of love that had survived the impossible. The human pulled her close, holding her as tightly as if he could never let go. "You did it," he whispered, voice soft but full of awe. "We made it." She rested her head against his chest, letting herself finally feel the weight of their victory. Tears glimmered on her cheeks again, but these were not tears of fear. They were tears of joy, of freedom, of love that had triumphed against all odds. "I never thought I could live like this," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "With someone who sees me, all of me, and still wants to be with me." He kissed her forehead gently. "That's what love is. It sees everything and chooses anyway. And I choose you. Always." For a long moment, they held each other, letting the quiet of space surround them. No alarms, no danger, just the hum of their ship and the warmth of their hearts. The alien woman finally smiled fully, a radiant glow spreading across her face. "Then let's build our family. Together." "Yes," he said, voice filled with hope. "Together." As the stars stretched past the windows, they knew the universe was vast, unpredictable, and sometimes cruel. But they also knew that love, true, unbreakable love, was stronger than any star, faster than any ship, and brighter than any galaxy. And together, they would face every challenge, every danger, every unknown horizon, because their hearts were no longer bound by rules, by fear, or by distance. They were bound to each other, and nothing in the universe could ever change that.